Hello one and all, and welcome to the Fast Forward Pro League show, the show where we speed through the best of the LCS so that you don't feel like you need to hit that fast forward button. I'm your host Danlight, and thank you for joining us as we look back on the opening round of group stage play of the LCS Lock-In Tournament and preview the coming weekend. Having kicked off last week, the Lock-In Tournament started with a major lockout after a total of 4 different LCS teams were forced to play with roster substitutions due to visa troubles. Team Liquid, FlyQuest, CLG, and Immortals all fell foul of the continued trickery that is obtaining the right paperwork for foreign imports, leaving stars such as Santorin, Broxa, Jose Diodo, and Xerxes yelling at their spectator screens from home and forcing NA to give their academy talent an actual shot once more. With Lock-In acting as a competitive preseason tournament for each one of our very fine LCS teams, it was very disappointing to see so many players miss out on some vital game time to build synergy with their new teammates, and one hopes that visa approval processes can be smoothed out in the future to avoid these same issues reoccurring once again. But regardless of who was or wasn't able to play, just like a Malphite ulting your bot lane, the LCS is unstoppable, and we will be powering through the rest of the group stage and proceeding into the knockout rounds of the Lock-In tournament between Friday and Sunday. However, before we can even start to think about the juicy start of proper series matchups, we still need to play through our final days of the group stage. Starting with Group A, we have a 3-way tie for top spot with each of TSM, TL, and 100 Thieves holding a record of 2-1. It was a case of starting from the worst for TSM this weekend, as they kicked off the Lock-In tournament by receiving an absolute shellacking from 100 Thieves before mounting a major comeback against Golden Guardians and then steadily besting CLG in their final game. Their games opposite 100 Thieves and the Golden Guardians were marked by poor early games that set them hugely behind, and whilst 100 Thieves were able to snowball their lead and hand TSM a loss, they were fortunate that Golden Guardians were busy doing their best impression of a Pro League pitcher to have the opportunity to mount an enormous comeback. The best and worst of Huni were once again on show, with him enduring a mostly miserable time playing weak side on Gnar in his first 2 games, followed by a strong performance on Ornn, where he was confident enough to TP into the enemy base surrounded by 3 CLG members. However, there are certainly positive signs for this team, as Spica and Lost both posted great showings in their wins, pointing to a bright future ahead for this TSM lineup with their youngsters already stepping up. TSM's final game of the groups sees them square off once more with Team Liquid, in what must surely have been the most anticipated match of the group, despite losing the glamour storylines of Bjergsen vs Jensen and Doublelift vs Liquid. Team Liquid's single loss at the hands of 100 Thieves came sandwiched between convincing wins against CLG and the Golden Guardians, where TL reaffirmed that they will be sticking to their identity as a stable, well-organized team fighting unit. CoreJJ gave a perfect example of why he was chosen as last split's MVP, with his performances on playmaking supports Leona and Thresh being part of almost everything good that Liquid were able to pull off. That CoreJJ has continued to smack aside his opponents in lane, whilst also leading his team with on-point engages without Doublelift, goes to show how dangerous TL will continue to be. Given the relative consistency shown in their first set of games, and that Santorin should be coming into the lineup for the remainder of the tournament, expectations are that they should be able to defeat a still somewhat raw-looking TSM and secure themselves either first or second place in the group. For 100 Thieves, it was a funny weekend, where they smashed through both of the favorites to top the group in TSM and TL, whilst losing to CLG. The Thieves were able to show the variability that they now possess in being able to both play around the top and bottom sides of the map. Against TSM, the focus was very much on getting some day ahead, which they achieved by repeatedly making trips up to the top lane to take advantage of Huni's inting tendencies. Their following 2 games, however, showed that the 100 Thieves are also benefiting from only having 1 new player on their Golden Guardians team by pulling off dive after dive to get their bot lane ahead, even having the confidence to dive Team Liquid between their Tier 1 and Tier 2 turrets. There are certainly still question marks over the team at the moment though, since their wins seem to come from snowballing off large early game leads, and their scrappy loss against CLG perhaps exposed a macro weakness. Having played around their bot side and secured 3 early dragons to CLG's none, you would have expected the team to close out on an Ocean Soul to help kill off the game. However, they then proceeded to lose 4 Drakes in a row as well as multiple Barons, ending up losing the game when trying to make a Baron play themselves. The Thieves' final group game is a clash with the roller coaster that is the Golden Guardians, and if they can show the form they did playing TSM and TL, they should be able to lock in top spot by virtue of their head-to-head record. Golden Guardians have been the surprise package of the group so far, despite only sitting at 1 and 2 in the table. GG showed that there will be no pushovers this year, with each of their players displaying solid performances throughout their 3 games. The Guardians look particularly good when making use of champions with global ultimates in Galio, Twisted Fate, and Taliyah to force advantages when attempting to make plays, and might be a good recipe for them as they gain more experience together as a unit. Their decision-making and coordination around objectives, however, could definitely benefit from some practice time, considering that they were 6-0 up in kills and had a Baron stolen away from them in their game with TSM. As we had mentioned, they will be facing 100 Thieves in their last game of groups, and it promises to be a good watch, with both teams looking as if they will be indexing on trying to get themselves early leads. Well, I guess we really should have seen this one coming, huh? With the unwanted honor of being the only team to be eliminated already, CLG hold a record of 1-3 after 4 games. Whilst a loss to Liquid may not have been surprising, CLG also lost against a fresh Golden Guardians team, giving them a 0-2 start. They followed that game with a hope-renewing win against 100 Thieves, but as always with CLG, that hope lasted about as long as you 1v1ing a Fed Master Yi, and they came crashing back down to earth with another defeat to longtime rivals TSM. With no games left to play in the group, CLG are already done in the lock-in tournament and will not be getting any extra game time in the remaining 2 game weeks of the competition, and will be praying that they can improve drastically in scrims with the 2 missing pieces in their roster, Finn and Broxa. Moving into Group B and sitting pretty at the top of the standings are the Evil Geniuses, staring down at their opponents from their lofty secret hideout. EG put in huge performances across their opening 3 games against Cloud9, Immortals, and Dignitas, with only a winless FlyQuest now standing in their way of securing top spot in the group. Impact left a major impression with his first games for the team on Renekton, and he often felt like he was single-handedly winning team fights for the Geniuses through his flanks and engages, which resulted in him rightfully being awarded Player of the Week by the LCS. However, there were also big performances from the rest of his team, with Jizuke putting in some spicy outplays on Zoe against Immortals, and definitely picking up 25 of his team's 63 kills through the opening weekend. Already there appears to be a cohesion between this new roster with a focus on proactive coordinated roams, and our EG highlight was their 5-man bot lane dive at just 4 minutes into their bout with Dignitas that surely left traumatized ADC players everywhere experiencing flashbacks. Despite only resulting in a 2-for-2 trade, we can see that EG are going to be a team that will fully commit to their plays, which may bode well as they continue with their aggressive playstyle. On this evidence, EG should have no problem wrapping up top seed in their group. Looking likely to stay where they are in second are Cloud9, who after losing to EG in their tournament opener, convincingly dispatched with FlyQuest and Immortals, and are now left with a single game against Dignitas to close out the group. Signing of the offseason Perks had a memorable first game of his LCS career, if only because his assertion that he would go the entire of the lock-in tournament deathless supremely backfired. He finished with a 4-7 record on Yone against EG, tying the most deaths for a single player in a game over the opening weekend, but managed to bring better performances in C9's later games. Fudge, on the other hand, seemed slightly underbaked upon his introduction to the league, but certainly deserves more time to bed in before we make any real judgments on him. The team overall looked monstrous in their 2 wins last weekend, playing a perfect game except for 1 tower against their old top laner Licorice and FlyQuest, as well as smashing Immortals with a kill score of 19-4. However, even if C9 do as expected and easily take care of Dignitas, that early loss to EG looks as if it will actually be costly in terms of placings in the group, and they may face a slightly harder matchup in the knockouts. Sitting tied at 1 and 2 are Immortals and Dignitas. Although each have managed to place a win on the board, it's very much been a case of picking up wins from those at the same level or below them, with Immortals winning their matchup with Dignitas and Dignitas beating bottom team FlyQuest. Neither team put up particularly strong fights in their games against EG or C9, but credit where credit is due to Immortals, who won the battle for the best of the rest despite playing with 3 subs in Potluck, Keith, and Joey. The plan of tilting Saligo off the face of the earth by having support Joey set up a tent in mid lane with Nautilus paid dividends in a game where Immortals also brought out Gragas top for the second time, which has been gaining traction in other regions, but doesn't seem to have quite taken off yet in the LCS. Rooted at the bottom of Group B is FlyQuest, who certainly would have been hoping for a better start to the year with their new roster. FlyQuest lost both of their games against Dignitas and EG, and were utterly dismal, finishing with a combined score of 3 kills and 28 deaths over those 2 games. An argument could be made for them that they had to use a substitute in the most OP role in the game, but ultimately it's not a good look when your team's highest kills is on your support. On the bright side, by virtue of this tournament having some of the laxest criteria for qualifying for the knockout round, and FlyQuest still having 2 games to play, there is still a reasonable chance that they may progress to the next round, especially if Jose Diodo becomes available to play. Before we round out the show, we ask, what's the meta with you? Where we take a look at the champions that you are going to be sick of seeing, the champions that pro players are sick of seeing, and just some funky interesting trends and picks from across the league. Jumping straight at us from week 1 was the 100% pick ban presence of Taliyah, Olaf, and Pantheon. Jungle appears to be the priority position to start off the season, with the majority of bans targeted at the role. Talia has been available on just 5 occasions and holds an 80% win rate. Olaf has seen 2 games with a 100% win rate, and the flex pick Pantheon not even having seen the light of day of the Rift, leaving the spotlight on the likes of Nidalee and Graves as viable options in the jungle. Bot laner Kai'Sa also saw 100% presence throughout the opening round of games, highlighting her as the pros ADC of choice, having been selected 12 times out of 15 games. Other picks and bans that are also frequently reared their heads this past weekend included Renekton in the top lane, Syndra, Orianna, and Akali at mid, Samira at ADC, and Alistar and Leona at support. Speaking of supports, the age of the engaged support continues to prevail, with newest champion edition Rel making a few shaky appearances in pro play, and only a couple of Enchanter support sightings from the solo queue monster Lulu. For all of you fans of champion diversity, be sure to check out Revenge's game of top Gragas against Dignitas, as well as Ignar's pick of Maokai support against the same opponents. And that's all we've got for today. That was our quick rundown of the key happenings of Week 1 of the LCS Lock-In Tournament, as well as a preview of the final group games still to come. For the most part, the tournament hasn't felt too exciting just yet, since only 2 teams will be eliminated at this point of the competition, and we already know one of them is CLG. But we're most certainly looking forward to some more drama coming in the knockout round. Now that we've come to the end of our show, I would like to give a very special thank you to you for watching this video and would greatly appreciate it if you did all the things you do for content that you enjoy. Once again, I have been Stanlight for the FFPLS with a reminder to never chase a singed. See ya!